They thought the German Shepherd had turned on their son. They had it completely backwards. Maggie Ostrowski had done everything right. She was 34 years old, a licensed practical nurse with 9 years on a pediatric floor, a woman who had watched enough parents panic over things that weren't emergencies to know the difference between a real problem and a stressed dog. She trusted her training. She had built her entire approach to motherhood around that trust. And on a Tuesday evening in March, that trust almost killed her son. Finn was 18 months old. Blonde hair, gap between his front teeth, the kind of toddler who laughed at his own jokes before he could form the words for them. He had been fussy since noon. Not dramatically sick, no fever above 99.4, nothing that flagged on any assessment. Maggie ran through her mental checklist. Fussy toddlers fussed. She had told families this 100 times. Hector had been with them 4 years, a working-line German Shepherd, 78 pounds, charcoal and tan, the kind of dog who carried himself with a precision that made strangers nervous. He had never shown anything but careful, measured patience with Finn. He gave the baby space. He waited to be approached. He read rooms the way some dogs simply do, adjusting his proximity to the energy around him, which is why what happened at 6:45 that evening made no sense to anyone watching. Finn was on the living room floor, crying the escalating kind that climbed in pitch without finding its ceiling. Hector came from the hallway at a pace just faster than a walk, crossed the room, and lowered his face to within 4 inches of Finn's. Not growling, not stiff. His nose pressed toward the boy's face, slow and deliberate, and he held it there. Finn screamed louder. Hector did not move. Maggie pulled him back by the collar. Hector, back. He went. She picked Finn up. Finn cried harder. Within 90 seconds, Hector was back, same position, nose aimed at the boy's face like a compass finding north. Her husband Joel came downstairs. He saw it from the hallway entrance, the dog's jaw near their screaming toddler's face. He said, one word. Maggie. She was already thinking what he was thinking. She had written clinical notes about exactly this pattern. Large breed dog, overstimulated by infant distress, escalating proximity, inability to redirect. She had read the incident reports. She knew how these situations developed. She pulled Hector back again, firmly this time, and walked him to the mudroom. Door closed. Finn kept crying. The crying changed at 7:12. Not louder. Lower. A flatter sound. The way distress sometimes collapses inward when the body has been working too hard for too long. Maggie noticed it and filed it as exhaustion. She had given Finn a bottle. He'd taken half. She had checked his temperature, 99.8. Still nothing to flag. In the mudroom, Hector scratched at the door once, then again. Then with both paws in a rhythm she had never heard from him, steady, deliberate, without pause. Joel opened it to quiet him. Hector went directly to Finn. He did not approach the boy's body. He went to his face, both front legs planted, nose pressed to Finn's mouth, inhaling in the way dogs do when they are reading something precise. Finn had gone quiet, too quiet. Maggie looked at her son. His eyes were glassy, his hands lay loose at his sides. The crying had stopped, not because he had calmed down, but because something else had stopped it. She took his temperature, 102.6. It had spiked in 40 minutes. She knew what that meant. She knew it in the part of her brain that didn't need to consult a checklist. She called 911 with Finn against her shoulder. The paramedic arrived in 7 minutes. By the time the ambulance reached Children's Regional, Finn's temperature was 104.1, and he was in the first stages of a febrile seizure in the vehicle. Drive Amara Osei, pediatric emergency attending, 11 years, managed the seizure and stabilized Finn within 20 minutes of arrival. She came to Maggie in the family room afterward. "What made you call when you did?" she asked. "His temperature was still under 103 when you dialed. Most parents wait longer." Maggie said, "The dog wouldn't stop going to his face." Dr. Osei looked at her without surprise. "That's not the first time I've heard that," she said. "Dogs detect fever onset through breath chemistry changes, the acetone compounds, the VOC shift. It happens before a thermometer catches the spike." She paused. "If you had waited another 20 minutes, we would be managing a very different outcome tonight. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe, so you don't miss the next one." Maggie sat with that for the drive home. Hector pressing his nose to Finn's face. Not aggression, fever detection. The scratch at the mudroom door. Not anxiety, the only working alarm in the house running out of ways to be heard. The flat sound Finn's crying made at 7:12, the moment the fever crossed a threshold the dog already knew about. She had 9 years of pediatric training. She had moved the dog away from her son 6 times in 40 minutes. Has your dog ever done something you couldn't explain until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. They brought Finn home 2 days later. He was stable, cleared, himself again. He walked through the front door and went immediately to Hector, grabbing a fistful of fur the way he always did. Hector stood very still and let him. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If these stories matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. That night, Joel found Maggie sitting on the kitchen floor at midnight. Not upset, just sitting with Hector's head in her lap, one hand moving slowly through the fur behind his ears. She didn't say anything. Hector didn't move. The next story involves a golden retriever who refused to leave a crib for 11 days before anyone understood why. Finn slept through the night. Hector lay outside his door until morning, chin on the threshold, watching the dark inside the room the way he had always watched it, with the specific settled stillness of an animal that has finished the job it gave itself and is simply making sure